I'm Steve McKee. I work with business owners primarily in the healthcare private practice space. I'm a physical therapist by training, or was. If you look at my license, it's long since expired, delinquent, whatever. But I own a private practice, grew it up to around $4 million run rate, and 48 employees was the most we ever had at once, and 6 locations and all that stuff. Shrank it back down before, and did that over the course of 20 years, but really worked on a number of things and really used the first, well, the whole time really, but deliberately, intensely the first 10 years or 12 years to educate myself in business, because I mean, as you guys know, none of us in school or, any professional programs, not just healthcare, not just PT, but attorneys, accountants, you name it, they don't get any real business training, right? So we have to kind of figure that stuff out as we go. So this is one of those items that I think is foundational and really, really important for you guys. And it's, creating that identity to attract the right patients. So what I want you to do is grab the workbook. You can go to that link. Whoops, let me do this. Just copy and paste. I'm going to put it in the chat. And if you're typing it in, it is case sensitive. Okay. So that happened at PPS. People were typing in and couldn't get the handouts and stuff. But just copy and paste that into your browser. It's in the chat, and you should be able to get the workbook. So if you don't mind, once you get it or get access to it, can you give me a thumbs up? And if there's any problem with it, I can make sure that you do get it. Okay. And the reason for that is we want you to implement. Okay. All this stuff, all the learning, all the talks are great, and they don't really mean anything unless you actually make them come to life in your business. So hasn't loaded yet. Okay. Keep me posted. Let me know if it comes up. So we have 3 major kind of challenges, problems that we face all the time in private practice, and that's payers and payment. Everybody knows that. Hiring great staff is another challenge, and then acquiring patients is kind of the big third one. That's the one we're going to focus on today. So I have a question for you. You can put this in the chat, and I'll jump over and see if I can fix what we're dealing with. But who is your most powerful marketer? What do you guys think? You'll have to throw it in the chat. This is word of mouth. Word of mouth from whom? Patients. You got it. Perfect. So our biggest marketer, bear with me one second. I'm just making sure, double checking the document is shareable.
I was able to load it.
You were? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Let me jump back over here then. Okay, so you guys are right on. Your patients and clients are the most powerful marketers, right? And the big question here, though, is how they see you. So, okay. Still, Mickey's saying it's still not going. Still not getting it, but we'll get it. We'll get it to you, Mickey, so you can work through it as well later. But how do your patients and clients see you? Okay. And what makes you different? Because this is really the critical thing. What makes you different? I don't know if you're familiar with the Purple Cow and Seth Godin, but this is one of those things where Seth emphasizes that being the same, being another cow in the world doesn't really set you apart. So be a purple cow, be something different, qualitatively different that people can see and stands out. One of the things he talks about too is being remarkable, and we'll come back to that too, but remarkable meaning that you're worthy of remark. Okay, so people are going to talk about 2 or 3 things throughout the day or at dinner or whatever. How do you get into that top 3? What makes you special? How can you leverage that word of mouth and facilitate that word of mouth and get people to talk about you? Because if you're forgotten or they're not talking about you, there's no word of mouth, right? So Jim Collins, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but a classic business writer, Built to Last, Good to Great, some really great books and foundational stuff too. But it's better to understand who you are than where you are going. in today's unpredictable world. And we can do our planning, and I'm a big believer in planning and strategic planning and having, goals and working toward them very deliberately and very linearly too. But understanding that the environment shifts and changes, we don't have control over that. So part of that planning process is really looking at not just internally our strengths and weaknesses, but looking outside, externally, at trends, at threats, at opportunities, because that will shift and change. So if we know who we are, we're going to be better able to exploit those and take advantage of those changes. But what I'm going to call out for you guys and really request, I won't say demand, but I strongly recommend, is that you figure out a way to stand apart from the crowd. That's our goal. If you're standing out from the crowd, even, that's not enough, right? If you're the tallest penguin in a sea of penguins, that doesn't, that's not terribly compelling, right? So we want you to be a chimpanzee, right? Or a cheetah or a flamingo or whatever it is you want to be, but we want you to be completely different and stand out and be clearly, dramatically, meaningfully different in the eyes of your target customer. So who are you going to ask? Because you're already different. Okay, this is the other thing people kind of miss. Like we don't think of ourselves as remarkably, different or weird or strange, or we tamp that down. Right now, CSM's going on, right? And all those people, if you guys have been to the conferences or you're there now and listening to the recording of this, how many people are walking around in polos and khakis? Okay, how many people are dressed the same? You can spot the PTs at the airport, right? Because they're all looking the same. And we really don't want to do that. We want to stand out. We want to stand apart. We want to be unique. We want to embrace that weirdness and uniqueness. But we have that. There's already something about us. But the question is who we're going to ask. And we're not going to do this. This isn't a democracy. Okay, everybody's vote isn't equal. We're going to focus in and ask our ideal patients, our target customers. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to break this down. This is kind of your marketing magic formula, the target customer brand promise and value proposition. Okay, the target customer, we're going to narrowly define. All right, and when I say narrowly define, I mean you're going to really describe that individual. You're going to think about the person that you love seeing on your schedule first thing Monday morning, or that you're happy to extend your Friday another hour to see that person. Okay, the person that just gets you jazzed and fired up, that you move your lunch for, not because you're feeling obligated or it's necessary, but because you really want to see, get that person in. They give you energy, that you thrive on that. They're the folks that you connect. They're the reason you went to TT school in the first place, right? They're the reason you went through all this work and started a business. That's the individual. Okay, the more narrowly you define this person, the better. And I'll, you can ask questions or put in the chat, but the pushback I get on that sometimes is, well, I want to serve everybody. No, you don't. Number one, no, you don't. We can debate that another time. But the point here is, if you make it awesome for this person, other people will also come. I mean, you look at the target here, right? We're aiming for the bullseye, but we're going to hit 7s and 8s and 6s and 5s, right? If we just aim for the target in general and we keep it really broad, we're going to miss the target half the time. So we want to aim for the bullseye. We want to be able to, we're going to appeal to other people. And the premise here, and this is one thing that you could write down, whether in the workbook or on your own, is to delight the few to attract the many. Okay, so delight the few to attract the many. We're going to really focus. We got to know who this person is, though, before we can delight them. So here's an exercise for you guys to do on your own, but to define your target customer, your ideal customer, your ideal patient. And what I want you to do is think about those people that really get you jazzed up, that you're super excited to see in your office and your clinics. Okay, and we're going to leave demographic over here on the right kind of last. And there's a reason for that, because that tends to be the traditional way people are defined. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, if you start thinking about those people that you're super excited about seeing, they might be a 17-year-old cross-country runner and an 83-year-old, female tennis player and a 52-year-old gardener and, whatever it is, right? But it's going to defy age, gender, income, occupation. It's going to defy all the traditional demographics. And the reason that stuff persists, just so you're aware, because when we go to pitch to angel funds or VCs and all the stuff in the magazines and all that other stuff, you can count those people. Okay, so they can you can make a case for the size of the market. For most of us, that really doesn't matter. We're not trying to be Amazon. Okay, we're not trying to be FedEx or Facebook or whatever. We're not, I mean, as of right now, PTs have reached about 5% of their possible market. Okay, and I can break that down for you another time, but that means your serviceable market, the people who need you, are 20 times as many people as you're currently seeing. Right? And if you're being super effective, it's still 10 times what you're getting, what you're getting to see. Okay. So the reason you're going to think about psychographics and the values and beliefs and who their influencers are and their opinions and the rest of that, and their behaviors, their habits, their media consumption, also their media participation. Okay, because now it's gotten into more of a two-way street, right? People aren't just sitting in front of a TV or even on YouTube, they're interacting and making comments and stuff as well. So what are their wants, needs, what are their physical activities, what all those things, because that's going to define the folks that you're going to connect with. Okay, we're going to use this because if writing a letter to someone, first off, we need to know who that person is. Okay, and then we've got to know why we're writing it. So let's get into our brand promise, because that's really the content, that's the why of what we're doing. So your brand promise is what people are going to expect when they interact with you. Okay, and there are 3 components to your brand promise. And big believer in simplification and then implementation. Okay, so use the workbook or write these down. Your blunt overt benefit is number 1. Okay, WIFM is the radio station everybody's tuned into. That's what's in it for me, right? We make the blunt overt benefit blunt and overt. It's clear and simple. And if you can make this, if you can do this well, you're 3 times more likely to attract a customer. Okay, and really the question you're trying to answer down here is the so what, right? The blunt overt benefit. So what? I'm the customer. I've sprained my ankle, or whatever, depending upon your specialty, right? If I sprained my ankle, I'm looking for somebody. So we work with sprained ankles. So what? I've done this 1,000 times. Okay, better. But so what? Right? Keep answering that question. Keep working. Why? Why is it important? And then what are you going to give me? And be really, really clear and succinct with it, not a big giant laundry list of things. Okay. Then the second component of this is your dramatic and meaningful difference. What makes you different? And this is where you're going to go back and ask those target customers that you've defined. So you're not going to do a survey monkey, right? You're not going to send it out to your entire email list, because some of those people drive you mad. Some of those people don't really care. They're not super engaged. Some of those people are, on the other side, are super engaged and awesome and send their family and friends and other people and talk about you and invite you to talk at their running club or whatever, right? Those are the people you want to ask. What makes you different? Why us? Okay. And when I say this is your unfair advantage, I was talking with a client just yesterday, right? And they have this big fancy clinic that came into their community, small community with 9 PT clinics. Okay, and thinking about that as competition, it's pretty rough, right? Well, she had a therapist who runs a kind of a social services thing in another place, and who went to this brand new shiny big corporate place and was really unhappy, and then came to her as a patient. Ask that person why. Okay, that's your unfair advantage, because the big corporate with 32 locations, the decision makers aren't talking with those target customers. Okay, they've got to create focus groups, they've got to do surveys, they've got to rely on other people. You can very likely this morning, this afternoon, walk in to your clinic or go into the treatment areas and start talking to patients. That is a huge unfair advantage, and you can select who they are. And you can find, this one's been super loyal and come back 3 times and sent their spouse and told us about this, and they really love us. Why? Why us? Why did you choose us? Why do you come back to us? What, start thinking about those things, and then take that and double down on it. That's the be remarkable part. New and newsworthy is great, but really what I'm asking you to do is embrace your weird. There's something unique or different about you, embrace it, right? I hate wearing business suits and crap. Okay, I'm not gonna. I might wear a jacket to be on stage somewhere and speak, but that's about it. Okay. So, and I've been told and corrected, oh, I should shave. I should look more coach, business consultant like. Yeah, whatever. You come to me because of what I do, what I know, what I can help you with. I'm going to embrace that. I'm going to be me. Be you. Don't, if polos and khaki is you, that's great. But if it's not, you're trying to fit in, ditch that stuff and move on to what really, really makes you different. And then the third one is the real reason to believe. How are you going to make good on the promise? Okay, so you told them your blunt overt benefit, you've embraced your dramatic and meaningful difference, and now you're going to tell them why you can actually follow through and do that stuff. Okay, so look at the small stuff, and this is where you get to reinforce. So you can this is where kind of the free screens come in, or a phone consult. They can see what you have to offer. They can see your expertise, right? They know that you can really help them. They see that you care, that you're really engaged. There's not a number. You're not waiting in line. Okay, if you guys track your inbound leads, and I know Pauline does a great job with that stuff, and if you don't, you need to, because not everybody schedules or not everybody shows up for the first appointment. So you've got 10, 20, 30% of the people who call you for an appointment that don't get seen, at least the first time around. That's an opportunity to call them and say, hey, I understand you sprained your ankle. What have you been doing? How's it going? Did you get into, if you don't know what else to say, just wanted to make sure you got in to see somebody, right? And think about that for just a second from a customer service standpoint, because usually that's going to be one of the differentiating factors for you versus the big corporates versus hospitals versus the rest of it. When is the last time you had a healthcare provider who you had not seen call you? Has it ever happened? Okay, you can pick up the phone for those 2, 3, 10 people each week, each month that don't book or that don't come, that cancel their eval. Call them the following week and say, hey, just want to make sure you got taken care of somewhere. Well, yeah, I saw them and they didn't really look, I wasn't happy. Okay, well, tell me about it. What can we do? Oh, well, I have an appointment next week. Okay, well, tell me what's going on, and maybe we can give you a couple of things to do in the meantime, and then you can take that information to them, right? Use your expertise, use your caring, use the reason you went, through all the schooling and effort and the rest of it to help people. It will come back, okay? Your heritage or pedigree is another reason to believe, right? You've been in the community for 30 years. You've got all the 78 letters after your name, whatever, right? Patient testimonials and stories is another one. That's social affirmation. Those are reviews. Those are great. Guarantees, be a little careful with. You can guarantee or make a promise they'll be happy. You can do that kind of stuff, but be careful because some of the licensing boards don't allow you to give a money back guarantee or things like that. So don't fall afoul of your licensing and laws and regs and stuff. But make sure they believe, right? And these three things, blunt overt benefit, dramatic and meaningful difference, and real reason to believe, when you figure these out and you codify them, you've written them down, talk with your staff, that's going to be your brand promise. Okay, and that's our, we dial up to 11. So if anybody remembers Spinal Tap, right? It's the 1 + 2 + 3 is 11, not whatever else. And then what we're going to do is the last piece of the exercise that you're going to do, because most of this is going to be kind of internal. Think about this as internal facing. Think about this as defining ourselves and understanding who we are as a company, practice, a business, an entity. Okay, and then what we're going to do is kind of repackage that to face outward, to be the thing that we use externally. Okay, and if you read some old stuff in the 70s and 80s and even before that too, they talk about good. You can be good quality, you can be quick, or you can be cheap. And then there's kind of a tension and balance, but that's outdated. That's not, we're assuming right now, I am, that you guys are providing great quality, right? You're probably doing it really cheaply if you're in network and contracted with folks, that's, by the way, cut that out. We can talk about that too. But I want you to get paid what the value you bring, right? But the way to do that and embrace that is by being meaningfully different. That's the key to success. Okay, the meaningful difference is one of those things that as you communicate out there, people are going to start to see, and the right people are going to come see you, and so are a whole bunch of other folks. Okay, and this is the exercise. What you're going to end up writing at the end of it, every time you come into Apex Physical Therapy, you're going to get whatever it is. Right, somebody who listens to you, somebody who's been down the road before, somebody who's also an endurance athlete, somebody who has, a neuroatypical kid, whatever it is that makes you different in a value proposition, what they're going to get, the understanding, they're going to get return to function, they're going to get all that stuff. But if you're not articulating that, right, the physical therapists particularly are kind of the best kept secret in healthcare. And we haven't done a great job of conveying the message or letting people know what it is we do. Okay, and the same thing's true of a lot of specialists in the healthcare world. But we've really got to, and by the way, sometimes I hear resistance from marketing, sometimes from staff and others, right? If you're helping people and doing something good and noble and you don't tell them, okay, that you have an ethical obligation to spread the word, to tell people what's going on and what you can do to help. All right. They can choose. They have freedom of choice. They don't have to come see you. But if they don't know about you, that's just that's terrible. Okay. So my goal for you is to implement this stuff, right? So we can think about it and put the paper down and not come back to it, whatever, but none of it's going to work unless you actually put it into practice. Okay. And we didn't talk about channels. We didn't talk about, like, advertising, or else you put it, because there are a lot of people, and Pauline's great at this too. She's also good at helping you with the other messaging and stuff. But there are a lot of folks out there that will sell the channel. We help you do your Facebook ads or SEO or whatever, and you don't have a message. So it's falling on deaf ears. It's just, you're like, again, you're a penguin in a sea of penguins. How do I know to pick you? So work on this stuff, and then you can push it out multiple channels, multiple times. Repetition, by the way, okay? Repetition, because people need to hear your message and know that you're there when they need you. They don't always need you, or at least they don't think they do, right? So make sure that you implement it and you get the right basis and foundation so that you can then use the channels and leverage all the social media and the rest of it. Okay, should we stop for questions, Pauline, or should we kind of a little bonus here for you guys if you want?
We can go ahead with the bonus, Sturdy, and then we can take some Q&A.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I want to, and this is in my book that's about to come out. I'm getting the first printed copies hopefully this weekend. But your patient experience. So this is your delivery, right? This is the after you've made the promise, this is what you're going to do to fulfill that promise. And then this is going to be integral, think about it, to the word of mouth piece, right? Because if we make a promise and we don't deliver, the word of mouth is not going to be good. Okay, if we make a promise and we deliver, or better yet, exceed expectations, then we're going to be worthy of remark. People are going to tell the story, that we can get testimonials, we can get surveys, we can get reviews. We can then also use their stories and tell their stories ourselves. And by the way, you can start doing that now. Okay, you've got patients that came in with no hope who've done great. I know you do. Why are you not telling their stories? You can anonymize it, but a 30-second video. Hey, Pauline came in with her ankle sprain. We'll do that again, but it had been the 7th time and she'd never done. Now she's back to playing soccer and hasn't heard it in 6 months. That's the kind of stuff we do. It's literally that simple. Okay, letting people know what you do, give them some credibility and something. That's your promise, right? So what I want you to do here, though, is in the patient experience, think about all the touch points. Okay, the touch points is every interaction encounter with your company. Okay, so you make a long list, because usually we're focused on the clinical part. What about your website? What about the emails? What about the first phone call? What do they see when they pull in your parking lot? Okay, all of those different things in the sequence of their experience with you, follow-up billing on the end, right? Every single piece, every single touch point is an impression from your business. Now, some of those aren't necessarily what you want to be known for, right? You don't want to be known necessarily for the most attractive facade and parking lot, right? But you need to make sure it doesn't suck. All right. So we don't want trash blowing through, or people camped out, or whatever. We don't want someone to be afraid to come into the clinic. But we want to make it good enough. Okay. The moments of truth, though, these are the things that you're going to be focused on, your dramatic and meaningful difference. Okay, what makes you different? What makes you remarkable? What makes you stand out? You're going to pick maybe 2, 3, or 4 of the total touch points, right? You're going to end up with 14, 15, 19 touch points, probably more, actually. But if you don't have at least a dozen plus touch points, you haven't done the work yet, okay? But the moments of truth are those things that you do wish to be known for. Okay, so your intake paperwork is a touch point. It's not a moment of truth, right? We want to neutralize it and make it not suck. Okay, we don't want people to be like, oh, this is terrible. Intake paperwork generally is terrible. How do you make it okay? Right? How do you neutralize it so it isn't terrible? But the moments of truth, maybe that's the clinical care, maybe that's the communication, maybe that's the scheduling or follow through, like the plan of cure is deliberately explained and negotiated and bought into, and then they leave with something explaining it so they can defend that when they go home. That's the first conversation to get when they go home too, and that's one of the touch points. It might even be a moment of truth. Right? What do they do when they walk in? Their partner, spouse, significant other says, "Hey, how'd it go at PT?" Right? And they say, "Oh, they start explaining it." Give them something written. It can be a postcard size with their plan and what you're going to do. That's it. But it like, well, I know we're going to do this. They agreed. And the reason I'm kind of belaboring this one is we overwhelm patients on the first day with information. And when they get home and have to explain it, they need something to fall back on. They need something that's simple and bulleted and what have you. But that's another opportunity for you to stand out and really stand apart from the crowd, because very few others are doing anything like that. Okay, and all this stuff is in, by the way, the book that's coming out. So I've written this with my old business coach, Matt Fitzsimmons, and the best physio business in the world. And you guys will be able to find it in a few weeks, probably on Amazon. But you can always reach out to me directly and get it. So let's stay in touch, and any questions, let's dive into that. What are your thoughts? I'll open up the chat.
A question for me, Sturdy. Is there any, from all your years of coaching, from your own business, like what has been some of the, standout, brand value promises that you've seen? Because I know everyone's always, I think it'd be good to hear an example, because I feel like when I ask private practices, they're kind of a little bit lost in, what they want to say. So.
Right, and I think part of that loss, that the disconnect there is very often what I see them do is they're trying to appeal to everybody.
Yeah.
When you're trying to appeal to everybody, you're not compelling to anybody. So, leave that to the politicians. Focus in on, right, what on your niche. So I had a client who, and I will answer your question, Pauline, don't worry. But I had a client who was thinking about working with runners and running athletes, right? And he wasn't sure there were going to be enough of them. And we pulled up Facebook and kind of made a mock ad just to see the population within 15 miles. And there were over 200,000 people with running interests and running magazine, and the rest of them like, can you serve all these people? I said, well, no. I went, okay, do these people even know you exist, right? What percentage of these people, this 200 and something thousand, know you exist, right? It's not even 10%. So, okay, that's number one. Be clear on who you want to serve. Be clear on who your ideal is, and then speak to them directly. Okay, so our brand promise used to be, we make happy patients, right? And it was happy patients because some of our folks we worked with some pretty complicated, I know everybody says that, but we had some folks that have had, we kind of stole this or worked together with an anesthesiologist who did spinal injections and assessments and imaging and stuff. And he was the last ditch for all these people who'd been in 7 other places, right? And we asked him, what do you want? He's like, well, I want him to be happy. I want him, and we're like, hey, happy, what do you mean? He's like, well, I know not all of them are going to get better, right? They've been down this road. We're not going to fix them. So, because our focus is always on, we're going to get you better. It's like, I want them to be better or get to the right place or know how to manage it, or at the end of the day, be happy. And we're like, oh, that's brilliant, right? So we kind of embraced that and did that, and that was in the practice I used to own. But I think, there's some like that you can think about, like the running athletes will help you get faster. That's a blunt overt benefit. You want to get faster. I mean, yeah, I want to get faster, right? My speed matters to college recruiting. My speed matters to my club sport, my whatever, right? So if I don't want to get faster, well, if you don't want to get faster, why would you come see us? Exactly. Right? So yeah, so blunt, and when you get here, you're going to get someone who is an expert in this, who listens to you, who, whatever that stuff is. So intangibles are important. Can you elaborate from your experience? Victoria, help me out with what you mean by that. What do you want me to elaborate on? And while she's typing that, what do you think is the most economical launch for bringing your business into the public? TikTok's free. Instagram's free. You can do ads and stuff, but I would just start with content, because then when you're advertising and leveraging that and getting it out to a wider audience, you've got to have the message. So just start recording, writing blogs, writing content, again, short and sweet. I was talking with a couple of clients about just duetting people on Instagram, or on TikTok rather, right? So there's somebody doing a 30-second teach you how to do a calf stretch. You don't like being on camera, don't be on camera. Just duet it and comment on it and say, hey, the form's pretty good. I'd recommend 30 seconds, not 15, but this looks pretty good. And, do these things that he's showing you and don't do this one. You're showing your expertise, you're getting your brand and your name out there. Okay, so there's so many ways to do that. There's so much free stuff right now too. But then there's a time and place too to start spending money on it, or at least on the infrastructure to make sure that it continues on. Okay, so your website needs to be consistent, right? So consistent with your brand. So the messaging you put out there on social media, the other stuff you put out there, your website needs to be aligned with that and reinforce the same message, as does the first phone call, as does it when they walk into your clinic, when they see the therapist for the first time, on and on and on. Okay. So Victoria's asking personal hobbies, intangible, kind of a broad question. Well, normally I'd be like, well, I don't know if that's really relevant or whatever, but no, I get it. Brace your weird. Victoria, if you go over here to the screen, like the schedule, the one tab that's can schedule time to talk with me, check it out, click on it, or here, I'll see if I can put it in the chat. Not letting me copy the link. Hang on one second. I'll put it in the chat, and the reason, actually, I'm going to open it for you because there is a reason. Okay, I've decided I'm not going to work for free anymore. But I will work for beer. Okay. And actually, I need to schedule a couple combos because I had to buy my own beer this week. So I'm out of client beer. But yeah, you can figure out ways to do that, right? And the whole point here is it's not free, so because people tend to blow it off or not show up or not really take it seriously. But it's also up to you. You can spend $5, you can spend $70. You can do whatever you want with it, and it's a little unique, and we're engaged on it, and you learn a little bit of something about me. So and you know what, for the folks that don't like that, fine, they don't like it, right? Maybe they're not my target customer, I'm not sure, but if they hold that against me, then okay, right? So, but yeah, I mean, think about your sports, your hobbies, your other stuff, any of that type of thing. You can incorporate that in, you can decide, you kind of figure out how to be a little bit, not be quirky, but take whatever's quirky or different about you and embrace it and accentuate it and advertise it, because we're all looking for that, I mean, and it doesn't have to be controversial and crazy, but we're looking for real people that we can connect with. So, try not to be generic, and at least in whatever you do. Okay.
Patients can see right through that, so they don't want you to constantly
everybody can, right?
Yeah, they want you to be genuine and true to yourself. So
for sure. Cool. Yeah, you're very welcome. Is there anything else before we wind it down? And were you all able to get the handout?
let's see.
Nikki said no. Victoria said yes. Okay, great. Nikki, we'll make sure you get the handout some way, somehow. Okay.
I know we had someone join on late, but this recording will be sent within 1 business day after. But if you don't receive it, you have Sturdy's email here, and then I'll put my email in the chat, and then I can make sure I send it to you guys. But it will be posted on the GMR web team, and will be shared on social, so you'll definitely be able to find it. But contact us if you don't receive the recording.
Yeah, and if you're watching the recording of this, and you can't get the handout downloaded or something, just email me and I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. Okay. Thanks, Pauline. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you so much, Sturdy. Thank you, everybody, for joining.